Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Tom Fedichin with the Microcap Connection, and Cookie here, my pug, who's kind of has been snoring away on my lap. Earlier this week, we had a call with Dr. Doug Brown and also Scott Jenkins from ZS2. The call went very well. Scott was on autopilot. I didn't really have to do much. Unfortunately, I did not have my video on, so I felt it's appropriate just to introduce myself and introduce the call, and also just to say that, hey, look, anything that's been discussed on today's call should be considered as educational, for educational purposes only, shouldn't be considered as investment advice. Anyone seeking investment advice, please seek out your broker or financial advisor. With that said, let's get to the call.
Sure. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. And I understand Tom's recording this, and there's a large group of people that will be listening in at a future date. So obviously, we really appreciate the opportunity to tell the ZS2 story. On the line is also our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Doug Brown, who I'm going to ask in a second to give a brief intro. Doug is actually on the highway this morning on his way to Red Deer, where installation starts this afternoon for a large greenhouse project at a school, which is a project in concert with the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, which will be our third project we've done with the state green building technology team. So Doug will join us to go through a little bit of the update on the science piece and our innovation and R&D efforts. Couple other things I would say, just to echo Tom's comments at the beginning. This is for information purposes. I've known Tom for a while, back from my time at DIRT Environmental Solutions, and Tom's made some excellent introductions for us, both for business partners and some key investors. So I appreciate those that have already supported us to get to this point. For those that I haven't met or spoken with before, quick background on me, and Doug will give a quick background. Then we've got a presentation deck, just an update for everybody this morning. And then I think Tom's plan is to open it up to Q&A. But background on myself, I'm a rare Calgary, Alberta-based person in that I haven't participated in the oil and gas or energy industry during my career. My career has always been with innovative technology companies involved in engineering and construction. So I started my career early at KPMG early on, and then when I left KPMG, I joined a company called Pure Technologies. Originally on the finance side, became their CFO. Pure was public. We completed a couple acquisitions, but Pure was focused on technologies, non-destructive testing technologies for pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipes, so big water mains, wastewater pipelines, suspension bridges, cable stay bridges, post-tension buildings. And our largest client was actually the country of Libya, the Great Man-Made River Authority. So huge water pipelines that we were acoustically monitoring and using our proprietary Soundprint software to prevent and extend the life, prevent catastrophic blowouts and extend the life of that infrastructure. After my time at Pure, I joined DIRT Environmental Solutions. Very early on, not quite at the beginning. DIRT was focused on prefab, and this will be the tie into ZS2, prefab interior construction solutions. So building out offices to start. Then we moved into healthcare. Healthcare grew rapidly. We expanded the business, opening manufacturing in Savannah, Georgia in 2009, and then Phoenix, Arizona in 2011. I actually moved my family to Phoenix, Arizona for a while as we opened that plant to get it off and running. And we expanded our business through distribution partners. So distribution, the analogy would be like the auto industry or Caterpillar, having local partners on the ground, over 110 partners in North America and international, some of whom have now become, or we're in negotiations with, to become ZS2 tech partners. And it was at DIRT that I really discovered magnesium cement board for a flooring system that was highly fire rated, and began exploring with the R&D team a project for an interior firewall. That was where I met Doug Brown. I joined a company called MGO Systems to look at potentially taking this idea. And then Doug, I, and our co-founder, Kristen Davis, who was with me at DIRT and then MGO, decided to start ZS2 in early 2020, right at the start of COVID, actually. So it was an interesting time to start a company, and we've grown rapidly. I think that's a testament to the team. Doug, could I throw it over to you real quick, just to give those folks who haven't met you a quick introduction on your background?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Apologies, I'm on the road, so hopefully I'm coming in clearly. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ZS2 Technologies. I started my career in Calgary. Actually, I moved here to join a research group that ended up forming the founding team of carbon engineering. We were looking at direct air capture of CO2 and then using it basically as a storage material down a hole somewhere. At the time in 2009, it wasn't as mainstream certainly as it is today. That company has since been featured in National Geographic and has one of the highest credibilities in the space, and is part of Occidental Petroleum today, and one of their major supporters is Berkshire Hathaway. They supported me through my PhD program, where I moved into more generally green technologies, large scale redox flow batteries, as well as window tints that acted as solar panels. And as Scott mentioned, we met at our previous company, MGO Systems, where I was taking impossible to recycle plastics and making new materials, new cement composite materials from them. And excited to tell you about what we're doing at ZS2 today.
Wonderful. By the way, Doug, congratulations on the top 40 under 40. That's quite the honor you just received.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, there's a few, we'll provide everyone a few updates. It's been an exciting 2 weeks. So Tom, the opportunity to speak with you and some of the folks you talk to regularly, and those that will be listening after this recording, is very timely. And I don't think we have enough time to share all the updates, but we're going to try. So with that, why don't I launch into, we have a short update presentation, but we're going to, because some of the folks I know that are on the call today or will be listening going forward, may not know a lot about ZS2, so we thought we'd kind of start at the beginning and then provide at the end a real-time update for Tom and everybody participating. So forward-looking information statements, you know, really the best way to summarize what we're doing at ZS2 and Doug's career, Kristen Davis's career, our team here, there's many of our folks that come from Dirt Environmental Solutions or our past companies that have joined us, is really this sentence. This is our business model. And it's our belief that the construction industry needs to change. It needs to advance. It's probably one of the most inefficient industries. Actually, there's an article in The Economist from a couple of years ago that it's the only major industry in the world over the last 20 years to actually go backwards in terms of efficiencies. But for that change, we believe it's going to require the adoption of prefabricated technologies. So our background from dirt, so to speak, many others looking at this, the modular construction industry growing. But it's going to take that in combination with true material science, true use of new innovative materials that are better for our changing planet. Now, this is fraught with challenges. We're not going to sit here today and say we are perfect and it's an amazing and easy way for us to go forward. It's not. This is extremely difficult. This is an industry that does not like change. And if you think about it, obviously, it's very important for the buildings that we live in, work in, heal in, that the building code is maintained, that we're building to higher standards all the time. So, but this really is truly what we believe here at ZS2. Our focus at ZS2 right now is innovative building materials, focused largely on magnesium. So we are a chemistry company. We believe in chemistry. Doug and his team, Doug obviously with his PhD in chemistry, the rest of our team, we have multiple PhDs actually on our team. We're focused on both the quality, testing, innovation, partnerships of new materials in concert with prefab. And magnesium is one of the most amazing elements, and I've learned so much through Doug and a little bit of my time at Dirt Environmental Solutions. It is the most resilient element on the periodic table of elements, so basic chemistry 101, most resilient element to high heat. So if you think about where the magnesium industry got started, it was really the refractory industry. And what that is molds and bricks for high temperature ovens and molds for molten steel, molten aluminum. So if you melt steel, you can put it in a magnesium mold. So tremendous amount of industrial uses throughout the world. But this is an element that also is in short supply, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I think The next slide is something we can all agree with. You know, I know most of the participants in the call today are Canadian-based, and I'll speak a little bit about our US operations and 2 weeks ago, our time at Greenbuild in San Francisco, the world's largest green construction show. There's no doubt that we need more resilient structures. Our selection earlier this year to help rebuild the community of Kanaka Bar, the Kanaka Bar First Nation near Lytton, BC, which burned to the ground. Our selection, after a rigorous basically vetting process with Okanagan College, Foresight, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, UBCO, and Kanaka Bar, was not just because of our resiliency to fire and storms, it was also because of energy efficiency and the significant hydro or electricity bills that the members of the First Nation experienced after their homes had burned to the ground and in their temporary housing. So this is a challenge we're trying to obviously hit head on, but it is something that we need to be conscious of regardless of where we are. I was on a telephone call yesterday, anecdotally. Last year, some of you may remember, we had a terrible wildfire just on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado. In February, there was snow on the ground. This is the new norm. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, kind of my scare tactic on that previous slide. How are we addressing this at ZS2? Well, two pieces of the pie, the orange pie that I'm going to focus on. We manufacture what are called structurally insulated panels. Chips have been around since World War II, usually using OSB or wood as their sheathing. And think of it like an Oreo cookie. Well, SIPs are known, and it's actually state law in California, Title 24, that if you build with SIPs, you don't need an energy efficiency analysis for your building permit. SIPs are highly efficient ways to build, higher R value, which most of us understand, and much higher U value. So think about, you know, living in an old house. I live in an old house and being drafty, or thermal bridging. So reducing that. But the addition of our proprietary patent pending tech board, so magnesium cement board, also means that we're lowering the carbon footprint and building a much more resilient structure. So we're also affecting the building materials and construction piece of that pie. Now, one thing that should be of note for everyone, the building and construction industry in the next 10 to 15 years will likely surpass the transportation and energy industry in terms of it will become the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Shocking, and Doug's going to kind of explain why on one major level. The tailwinds for us at ZS2 actually are growing and growing rapidly, but they're similar to what I've seen in our previous businesses and the businesses I've been fortunate enough to be part of. And really that is that access to skilled labor, for any of you on the call or listening in the future, if you've tried to maybe renovate a house or you're building a new home or a cottage or a bathroom, it's difficult to get that skilled labor. In the United States, the average age of a skilled tradesperson is estimated to be 58 years old. Young men and women aren't entering the trades like they used to, and that's a big challenge. And we'll talk about a project we're doing in Texas, where we are cost competitive. We're actually slightly less than building a traditional home from Calgary, Alberta, which seems crazy. The other thing I want to highlight is the new and ever-changing building codes and energy efficiency requirements. Step code in British Columbia, most jurisdictions are now at step 3, which is 40% energy reduction or efficiency for homes, and moving to passive house ready, so step 5. Toronto green standards, which now exceed the step code. The City of Ottawa just brought in their new standards. City of Calgary, new energy efficiency standards for new buildings. We'll talk about our Trico project in a little bit. That came in a year and a half ago. California Senate Law, State Law 595, which will require by 2035 that all cement products used in the state of California are carbon neutral. That is an absolutely crazy leap to get to. And I'll admit, I only learned about the Senate Bill 595 2 weeks ago at Greenbuild, while in discussions actually with the chief architect for AWS or Amazon's data centers. So this is the new world. Our product, really quickly, for those that are just being introduced to us, tech board. So hard to see this on obviously a Zoom call. A magnesium oxysulfate board, high strength, the most fire resistant building material, low carbon. Currently, we import this board from our strategic supplier, exclusive to us, third party tested from China. We'll explain why we import it from China right now, and where we're going with our next generation board to be the first ever non-Chinese made board. We then take that board, we can sell it, or we integrate it into, this is a mini version, a structurally insulated panel, rigid insulation, prefab, custom for residential, commercial, industrial construction. Our TechClad product is a non-structural curtain wall application. This would be our partnership with Trico. And now multiple developers, I toured one yesterday, one of British Columbia's largest developers, doing a major project on Vancouver Island, the Okanagan, in Vancouver, and also Seattle, who we spent 3 hours with. They flew in to see the Trico build site. So we toured it yesterday, going extremely well. And then new products under development, tech spray, tech siding, and tech floor. This is really simply what our tech panels look like. They're custom. They replace the framing, the insulation, and the sheathing. So we're manufacturing these off-site at our manufacturing facility here in Calgary, Alberta, where I'm sitting. I'm sitting in one of our meeting rooms. And about 30 feet that way is 18,000 square feet of manufacturing space. And come February 1st, because we're capacity constrained right now, we're running full out and running weekends, we're taking on an additional 26,000 square feet of space.
Wow, congratulations.
Well, it scares the heck out of me because I got to find how to pay, pay for this lease rates, Tom. You know how it goes. No, I'm kidding, everyone. We're actually really excited about the space. One of our challenges here at ZS2 is we are busting at the seams right now. So things are going well. So Doug, I think I'm going to turn it over to you because this is the exciting stuff. So Doug, if you want to just tell me when you want me to flip slides, if you can't see them, or if you can, just give me the A-OK.
No problem. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so this is the reason why cement is so carbon intensive. And what came out of Green Build 2022 was that the cement industry can, over the next decade, fairly readily reduce their emissions by about 40%. But today, the global average and what is broadly expected or accepted is that 1 ton of cement production produces 1 ton of CO2. And so they've said that they can reduce this by about 40% to about 600 kilograms of CO2 per ton of cement. And that's with fuel switching to renewables, et cetera, from what is a fossil fuel powered kiln usually. And the reason that cement is so carbon intensive is 2 reasons. One, the reaction to take the raw rock, which is calcium carbonate or limestone, to the active ingredient in cement, which is calcium oxide. That reaction temperature is about 1500 Celsius and happens pretty much continually. So they have to burn a tremendous amount of natural gas or coal to power this high temperature reaction. But also the rock itself in its normal form has about 50% by mass CO2 in it. And that CO2 we cannot avoid. It's based on the chemistry of the reaction that we've shown here. And so they're saying that the last 60% of the emissions, which is associated with the actual chemical reaction, they don't have really a path forward today on how to avoid those emissions. And whatever paths are being presented are only incremental in sort of limiting that emission profile. And if we are going to live in a world where all the emissions are captured from these plants, it's going to require a massive motivation and infrastructure spend to provide pipelines for the gas to be provided to then dumps or holes where it can be stored. And so if you look at the CO2 capture and storage piece of society, it's really the storage piece that becomes the limiting factor. We do have a lot of technologies that can capture it, but what do we do with this massive amount of CO2 gas that we're going to generate? And I should mention that the gas takes up a lot more volume than it did as a rock. So, simply saying like, hey, we've burned all this fossil fuel, we can shove all the carbon down a hole. It doesn't quite work out that way. You need a lot more holes. Next slide, please. So magnesium cement has regained research efforts over the last few decades for 2 reasons. One, it has a tremendous fire rating, as Scott described. And so oftentimes, if you're looking at replacing conventional materials like drywall or other fire-rated assemblies, you can potentially reduce the thickness of these materials quite significantly with a thinner layer. And so if you're in a high-rise building situation, this can result in a fairly significant weight savings, which can reduce, steel costs to hold up the structure. The other reason it's regained favor is that there's a potentially much lower carbon footprint associated with these types of cement materials. Well, I should say there is today, and there's the potential to take it even further tomorrow. And that's because these cements are predominantly based on salt water. So they're in fact 2/3 salt water and then 1/3 a rock that's similarly produced, as I described on the previous slide, from magnesium carbonate. One of the reasons this cement is not more prolific in the industry is because there is limited geographic availability of the raw magnesium carbonate. It's predominantly found in China, North Korea, and Russia, and only sparsely found in North America. And so to broadly take over an industry like cement that requires a lot of volume and broadly deployable sites everywhere so that people have local access, it just doesn't work. That's why we've targeted what we would call high value applications of our cement products initially, but we intend to address the larger global network by providing non-conventional sources of magnesium, an avenue to address and the scale to address an industry like cement. Next slide, please. So this gives you an idea of one of the most promising comparatives for taking cement down to carbon neutrality. The ordinary Portland cement today in North America is much higher standards than the rest of the world. As I showed on the previous slide, about 1 ton of CO2 is produced per 1 ton of cement, while in North America, that's closer to 0.6. There are many different opportunities and exploration routes that many companies are pursuing to incrementally improve that emission profile, but we've essentially reached that low-hanging fruit decarbonization of cement level in North America today, and that would be with the fuel switching and the using less of the cement by providing carbonates and other sort of incremental processes. But if I draw your attention to the bar graph on the right, you'll notice that one of the only avenues that we have available to completely decarbonize this product without broad scale carbon capture and storage is a cement based on magnesium. And we see that as another reason why these products should be more mainstream in the market. Next slide, please. So this is how we're going to do it. Today, we import our products from overseas. Like everyone else, there's a tremendous market for these materials as they are making building methods simpler, more cost effective, and higher resilient as you're looking at replacing things that are potentially not water resistant with something that can withstand some of these climate events that we're experiencing regularly. But the way we're going to produce these materials here locally and address this scarcity of supply is by utilizing waste streams. So we are a very good circular economy solution. We're tapping into magnesium that's produced in the brines. These brines can be sourced from the oil and gas sector that we use in Alberta, but they can also be sourced from geothermal operations as well as desalination. The other product that we're using is a widely abundant low-grade magnesium mine source. So we have one of the only magnesium oxide producing mines in North America, located about 1.5 hours from our facility, but they have a tremendous amount of off-spec rock that has no value in the market, and they've paid the money to process it and crush it, and it just didn't meet their specs in the end. That is the product that we are targeting for our other source of magnesium. As I mentioned, they're 2/3 brine and 1/3 magnesium rock. And so it's those two waste streams that we've tapped into to create our Made in Canada solutions. Next slide, please. We see this as a stepwise approach over the next several years. Today, as I mentioned, our business is very busy. We are currently manufacturing and selling magnesium oxide panels and boards, looking to replace conventional layers of plywood, drywall, as well as the entire building envelope with something that's more resilient and higher energy efficient. Over the next 3 years, with the support of our federal and provincial governments, we will be developing a first of its kind magnesium-based cement from waste in Calgary, Alberta. During this period of time, as we see rapid expansion in our current business, we'll also be looking to deploy several sites to manufacture our building products today. Finally, we will be scaling up our technology to compete in the X Prize, as we are currently competing in the X Prize, which is, if you're not aware, a big global competition for a carbon dioxide removal. Our carbon dioxide removal plant will be based on using our waste to cement product solution, as well as a CO2 capture piece involved. Next slide, please. These are our strategic partners. Baymag, one of the world's largest non-state-owned magnesium oxide producers. They do almost everything in the industry and have global operations. Progressive Planet, a strategic investor and large supporter of ours, provide us some of the mineral components that we use in our cement, or in our concretes, I should say, which is cement plus aggregates. And then the last three are various technology related partners that are helping us develop and support our technology development through many avenues of our multiple grants that we have at the different levels. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Doug. That's great. So if I was to take a step back, and I'll let everybody I don't plan on reading this slide. If you think about where we are as a company, and potentially for investors, strategic partners, all of our stakeholders, really what we've done, and this was our business plan from the beginning, was we are rapidly developing the first non-Chinese made suite of magnesium precast products, high value products. In China, these products in Southeast Asia and actually other parts of the world are rapidly overtaking the drywall market, OSB market. And so market acceptance has already been readily identified and exhibited. So we're building out that market, and we have a growing, we'll go through the sales pipeline here in a little bit, but concurrent with us building the new Made in Canada solutions, we've developed, as I mentioned, that sales pipeline. And so we intend to obviously insert our Made in Canada production and proprietary formulas. That has tremendous advantages, which I'll go through in a second. So it's really doing everything concurrent rather than your typical, technology or clean tech startup that may have a better idea or better technology, develops it, tests it, maybe moves to pilot phase. We're already rapidly developing the sales channels and generating revenue. So that's where I think what gets me most excited about our business and what everything our entire team is accomplishing is just how quickly we are moving in parallel. So that's kind of an important piece. I think everything that Doug kind of talked about, for many of you, and I know there'll be some questions, or of course we would welcome anybody to provide us with or reach out to us, provide questions in the future, would be the importance of third-party validation of what we're doing. So at the very beginning of our journey as ZS2, we embarked and worked closely with SCS Global, who are the global leaders, widely recognized, and I'll speak about Greenbelt here in a second, for a life cycle analysis and environmental product declaration. Our current products represent a 70% CO2 footprint reduction versus comparable products. That's with our current Gen 1 tech board. Our Canadian-made tech board will likely result in 100%, if not carbon negative footprint. This is all third-party validated and required over a year of data analysis of our existing commercial products or projects, sorry. Second, Doug mentioned X Prize. So a year and a half ago, we were invited to the team at Avatar Ventures to apply for the X Prize. And we were one of 1,133 companies accepted after a peer scientific review. In April of this year, we were named a top 60 worldwide milestone finalist. So we're one of 60 companies worldwide competing for the $50 million US top prize, which will be announced on Earth Day in 2025. That required a PhD chemical engineer from X Prize coming to Calgary from California and spending 2 days with Doug and team and validating all of our technologies. Engine, I'll highlight at the very bottom, that's the federal government of Canada, who announced on December 24th of last year, and we're still just finishing out a $250,000 grant for advanced manufacturing for ZS2. So for investors, that represents pure non-dilutive financing. We believe it's just the first step in what is to come. A quick view of some of our projects. So at the bottom, you can see the project for Albuquerque United. Albuquerque United is the Albuquerque or New Mexico pro soccer team. This project was about speed, it was about resiliency, and this is for their field house and for their locker rooms. The second, that's the first project on the left, and the project on the far right, similar project. The one with the steel girders, that's a generator building for a large utility in St. George, Utah, as a utility that has a lot of solar and wind power. So these are the backup generators, and it requires a higher fire and blast resistance because there's significant fuel depots outside. And then a residential project showing our ability to significantly reduce Portland cement and concrete in a traditional home build, and that's in southern Alberta here in Pincher Creek, where the house was designed to sustain 208 kilometer-an-hour winds. So for those of you that have been to southern Alberta, you know it's pretty windy down there. These are all just examples of projects that we've successfully completed and generating revenue. I mentioned at the top of the call how hard it is to introduce new materials and material science to the construction industry. At ZS2, we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars and consciously done so to obtain third-party certifications, QAI Labs and Intertech, so third-party certifications on all of our products. CCMC, which is the Canadian Construction Materials Center, that's a division of the National Research Council of Canada. So if you have a CCMC number, that means you are qualified and approved under the Canadian Building Code as an alternative material. This is what building inspectors look for. One of my mentors and a good close personal friend, Mogan Smed, who's now the CEO of Falkbuilt, always used to joke to our investors on our road shows, next to his wife, the most powerful person in the world is the building inspector. And it's not really a joke, it's true. So we need to go in and show these building inspectors and our clients for their building permits that we have all of the certifications. And then of course our LCA EPD, which is extremely important. I will say in a second, we're going to give you the update on Green Build. Having the LCA and EPD, there are billion-dollar companies that have not yet taken that step. And so they are eliminated from doing business with some of the world's largest companies in the United States. Our sales pipeline continues to grow. Our year-end, our fiscal year-end is September 30th. So we've just completed our fiscal year-end, so I'm not going to speak specifically to the results until we release them to our stakeholders. But obviously significant growth, and September revenue eclipsed the entirety of our first year of operations. So the monthly revenue in September was larger than the entirety of our fiscal 2021, as an example. This is a result in our growing pipeline of our distribution model. So number two, I just want to highlight this point. Leanna Gilmore, our Chief Commercial Officer, who is a partner of mine at DIRT and helped run our distribution partner team, has now been with ZS2 for over a year. We have over a dozen tech partners who have local relationships throughout the United States and Canada. Construction is the world's largest industry, bar none, but it's also the most localized. So we need local partners who have existing relationships. That also allows us to compress the sales cycle and build trust. And the example of our Alabama, before Tom started recording on this call, I was discussing that last week we had one of the largest residential developers from Alabama visiting us on a very frigid week here in Calgary, Alberta. But they were here because of the relationship with Business Interiors, our Alabama and Florida partner, as just one example. Quick example of what we're doing. And this was a proof project, and sometimes projects like these really become company makers. Trico a year ago decided to partner and took a little bit of a risk with a small company called ZS2 Technologies to complete the exterior cladding for one of their largest projects to date on McLeod Trail, Shaughnessy Station here in Calgary, Alberta, a 7-story multifamily build. They chose us because we were cost effective and we provided the energy efficiency requirements they need under the new City of Calgary building code. Trico has been so happy with us, and I toured this site yesterday with, as I mentioned, one of British Columbia's largest developers who flew in last week or this week to be with us. The project was originally a scope of about $500,000, just under $500,000. It subsequently was increased by almost $250,000 as we started to do interior firewalls. We've now been verbally approved for the next 3 buildings. But more importantly, Trico, the relationship's been so strong, we are touring people through this building weekly. And as the guest that I was hosting yesterday said, and I know this is anecdotal, they said, aren't Trico folks going to come on the site tour as we donned our PPE? And I let them know, no, we have such a great relationship with them. We just give them a heads up that we're coming to the job site, and they know we can tour whoever we want around the site. It's a wonderful relationship with one of Alberta's largest developers and most forward thinking. So what's new, Mr. Jones, Mr. Tom Fedichin? This is the slide for all the folks that are on the call today or listening to the recording going forward. You'll see those pictures were taken yesterday from the Trico site. You can see the building is almost complete, and they're about to break ground on the next building right beside that here in the next month. Now, breaking ground on the next building means we probably won't be on site for about 6 months on that building. I want to also highlight Greenbuild. So I've talked about it a lot. So Greenbuild is the world's largest green construction show. It's the US Green Building Council. This was the 20th anniversary of the event in San Francisco. When I was the president and the director of DIRT, we attended Greenbuild many years ago in Toronto. It's a huge show, but it's a much bigger education event. It brings all the key decision makers, folks in organizations who are at the top of the food chain, the directors of sustainability, vice presidents of sustainability, VPs of construction. It really is not just I say with a lot of trade shows, a bunch of folks just looking around looking for free posters. At this show, I'm so proud of our team. You can see an image of our trade show booth. We built a full ZS2 structure in partnership with our new strategic partner, Falkbuilt, on the interiors. It was packed as we demonstrated everything we can do. And I will share that we had the chance to meet, and it wasn't planned, the director of sustainability, chief architects for some of the world's largest technology companies based in Northern California. Names that are known around the world, including one whose phone you might have sitting on your desk right now. We are now in discussions with 2 of those companies. They've reached out to us. They said to us, do you have an EPD, Scott? Do you have a life cycle analysis? To which we said, yes, we do. We need to see that. We're now presenting to one of these companies their entire team for their retail stores next week. So things are moving fast. I'm not saying there's revenue coming right now, but people told us this is the most exciting thing they've seen at the show. And these companies have all committed to have carbon neutral buildings. They want it for marketing, their customers are demanding it, and they realize that through us, that is potential. I also want to highlight our recent win 2 Fridays ago at the Alberta Science Technology Awards. So Kristen Davis, one of our co-founders, had to give the acceptance speech on Friday. That's Kristen on the stage. And then the next day, Kristen was also named an International Women of Inspiration for the Science Technology Awards. So she had to give 2 acceptance speeches in a row. So it was a busy week as we attended Greenbuild. Doug Brown was named a top 40 under 40. Kristen Davis, a Women of Inspiration winner, and ZS2, an Aztec Science winner. Habitat for Humanity. We've now received the verbal, and we're just finalizing the letter of intent for the largest Habitat for Humanity project ever for 107 homes in Angels Camp, California. This is about an hour and a half east of San Jose, San Francisco, in the Sierra Nevadas. We had the chance to have dinner and spend a full day with the team during Greenbuild that are building this project. They are just building out the roads and the site services. The first home, the demonstration home, will go in probably next spring or summer, and the majority of the homes will be built in 2024. This will be a huge demonstration project for us, but I think what it also showcases is our ability to potentially solve the affordable housing crisis affecting North America right now and still deliver value for all of our stakeholders. We've secured our first US projects in Texas. Right now, we're building the first of 23 homes. We expect there to be many, many more. How are we cost competitive in Texas? Well, the truth is they can't get skilled labor, as I mentioned earlier, down in Texas. But also in Texas, if you remember, they had a tremendous winter storm last year, and their homes weren't insulated or prepared for that. It's a changing world. I've given you the Trico update, and we've mentioned we have a dozen tech partners under contract now, with nearly another dozen in full discussions. So that's the most up-to-date information I can provide everybody over the last 2 weeks. as things continue to move very, very quickly here at ZS2.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great update there, Scott. Now, would you say that the ability to sell into so many different markets is a direct result of these tech partners, or is it something that you are doing as a company to attract the likes of the government, whether it be First Nations, whether it be residential or commercial construction?
I would say twofold, actually. One, yes, definitely our tech partners. Our tech partners, either whether it's DH Construction in Northern California, whether it's Improve Group or a Sound Look down in New Mexico, whether it's Business Interiors in Alabama, our partners have existing construction relationships, and they're introducing to their clients the ZS2 tech panels and solutions. So there's a natural trust and fit, so we can accelerate the sales timeline and projects that they may already have on the drawing board. So that's number one. Number two, one thing I'm very proud of here at ZS2, and I actually can take zero credit for this. So full disclosure, our marketing and communications team are absolutely amazing. We have a very sophisticated digital marketing campaign. We launched that very early on when we launched ZS2. This includes, for those of you that follow us on social media, it includes our ring fencing using Google search. During Greenbuild, for example, if you would have Googled, if you were at Greenbuild at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, and if you would have Googled sustainable exterior construction, you would have had a pop-up ad with ZS2. If you would have clicked that ad, we're capturing your device's ID, and now we can push ads to you wherever you go in the world. So very important for us. It's very targeted based on zip code, geography, using very sophisticated tools through LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We've been doing this since the beginning, our podcasts, the Building Tech Talks, and really with that piggybacking other social networks. So we do get a lot of inbound, and I'll admit right now, it is difficult for us to keep up with the inbound requests for information with ZS2.
Interesting. Now I see you've got a new distribution agreement with Falkbuilt. Can you elaborate on that and what that means for ZS2?
So not really. So it's not a distribution agreement. What we've agreed to in principle is with respect to our first made in Canada suite of magnesium products. So Doug and I haven't covered this actually, so maybe we missed a little piece. Is we have equipment which is in transport. This has all been specified by our team. We also work with Journey Engineering that is en route. So within the next 2 months, by January, we will start production of 2 foot by 2 foot tiles, if you will, floor tiles, 18 millimeters thick. That's 3/4 of an inch. And I know I'm getting a little technical. This is a market for raised access flooring in the commercial world that we are extremely familiar with. When I was with Dirt, the team, we purchased a company called Spider Manufacturing, and we built that business to up to $30 million in sales at our peak. So there's an excellent market there. We know all the players in the market. So we have a verbal agreement, we'll just put it in paper, with Falkbuilt to distribute to their partners, their Falkbuilt branches, the raised access flooring system for the first ever made in Canada magnesium flooring solution. So we hope to have that fully commercialized and operational, as I said, by January, might be February. There's always a few hiccups when you have new equipment coming in. And that's part of the reason for our expansion of space here in Calgary. I
see. And speaking of the space in Calgary, what is the capacity of that with the expanded facility in Calgary? What is it going to take to reach full capacity? What's the revenue you think generated that you could generate from this facility before that's at full capacity?
So I'll take a quick step back. This will be a much shorter answer for everyone. Right now, our capacity is about $6 million a year. Our run rate as a company, if you use our September revenue, is 4.8 million. So you can see we're at capacity. We can add additional people and some small tweaks to our manufacturing process. But this additional space plus the additional equipment that's coming for tech panel manufacturing should quadruple our capacity. In terms of going even past that, we can do what we used to do at Dirt, which is run 12-hour shifts. We used to run 4 days on, 4 days off for our team. So we'd have an A shift, B shift. So we ran 7 days a week. Or the way we really looked at it is an 8-day work week. That's another way we can also increase capacity. So quick answer, we're at 6 million right now. We could increase that in our own space. With the additional space, we'll quadruple that capacity.
What do you think you'll do in sales for 2023?
Well, that's a tremendous forward-looking statement, so I'm going to give this a caveat. Our forecast is for $8 to $12 million for 2023 sales. Obviously, our projects can be very lumpy, but given our sales pipeline, we continue to see our revenue grow on a quarter-to-quarter basis.
Okay. Now, the Habitat for Humanity contract, I'm assuming that this is, well, that's the first of many, I'm assuming. And by the way, I'm getting distracted. Sean's got a question here, but it's the first of many bigger projects that you've got coming down the pipeline. Is there anything else of that size or that scale that we can expect in the near future?
So real quick, it's been interesting on Habitat for Humanity for us to realize that Habitat for Humanity is actually a very decentralized organization, and it's local chapters. So we're working with the Northern California group, but it will be the largest Habitat for Humanity project ever. But that hopefully will give us a great showpiece for other local Habitat for Humanity organizations. The quick answer to your question is yes, we are in discussions with some very large developers on projects that would dwarf the Habitat for Humanity project that would be rolled out over years. One of which in particular here in Canada, we have secured the 2 demo projects. So we will be constructing that. And we have secured our first ever affordable housing project with a modular builder, which will be going in downtown Vancouver. So we're very excited to partner with a company out of Vancouver who's focused on sustainable, affordable housing. And they are modular, so the tech panels are being integrated into their leading edge system. Very energy efficient, very cost effective. They like to kind of keep their relationships with their clients, but it's actually a First Nation project. And they have larger projects they hope to complete with us, probably 2023, early 2024.
Wonderful. Now, do you have the staff required to, to potentially quadruple your output in the near future?
No, we don't. I'll be, look to you and those participating in the call. Our team here at ZS2, folks from Dirt, folks from Falk Builds, folks from the construction industry, IPB Systems, who we merged with and bought at the beginning of ZS2. So, IPB has been building since 2002, and the entire team as far as ZS2. Incredibly talented, but we're running flat out right now. And getting great, talented people is a challenge. Now, one thing I'm very proud of is our culture, our capability for our team members to really feel good about what they're doing and what we're contributing to society. But it's a challenge. It's, finding good people. So right now, I believe we have about 3 or 4 positions that we're looking for. With the expansion, we'll be adding probably another dozen. It's a challenge.
Okay. As for your industry partners, you've got BMAG, which maybe you can speak to from a proximity standpoint of delivering raw materials versus, say, bringing in from China, cost savings and whatnot. And then maybe also talk about Progressive Planet and how they play a role with ZS2.
Sure. So first off, BMAG. So BMAG is the largest and only, would be the largest producer of magnesium oxide in North America and only Canadian producer. It's also one of the highest purity sources of magnesium oxide in the world. BMAG has been producing magnesium oxide since 1982 at a site at the foot of Mount Assiniboine. So that's near Radian, British Columbia. And then they refine that at their recently expanded facility in Exshaw, Alberta. So just outside Canmore, Alberta, about 45 minutes away from us on the Trans-Canada Highway. So very close proximity. They have been an absolutely amazing partner on the research and development and strategic partner as we develop, our solutions. They're also a consortium partner along with us for a very significant federal government grant application that we hope to hear about here in the next couple of weeks. And we've been shortlisted and are a finalist for a major multi-million-dollar federal grant. We're very excited about that, and BMAG's done a tremendous job. They are a wholly owned subsidiary of Refract Technique. As Doug mentioned, one of the world's largest private magnesium companies. The two largest magnesium companies in the world are Chinese state-owned, just to give you a little context. We've had the pleasure of meeting the executive team, including the chief executive officer and the head of R&D from Refract Technique from Munich, Germany. We've spent a couple of days with them, and we've met their sister company's executive team from Brisbane, Australia. They're near Rockhampton, QMag, Queensland Magnesium, which is 2.5 times the size of AMAG. So if you start, I guess I'm kind of setting the table a little bit about some of our blue sky expansion and scalability plans in the partnership with BAMAG. Next, you'd asked me about Progressive Planet. So for those interested, Progressive Planet is a public company. It trades on the TSX Venture Exchange. They have done an absolutely amazing job transforming that company with the purchase of a company called Absorbent Products. So Progressive Planet is a strategic supplier of ours for, as Doug mentioned, critical minerals, which really differentiates our product versus that from Southeast Asia. And it makes our product much better. They, again, have also been a strategic R&D partner, but they really are a critical local source for a key component of our proprietary and patented, or patents filed, I guess, over a year ago for the first patents, tech board. So strategic partner. We've also enjoyed just working with them closely on a whole bunch of innovative things, and they've also been strategically very good. They've introduced us to a lot of capital partners, potential investors. And for the record, Progressive Planet is a direct investor in ZS2.
Okay. Now, when do you plan on hitting break even? What is your cash burn, and how much capital will be required to reach the goal of break even?
So right now, and it depends month to month because we're a little bit lumpy, cash burn, or Tom, I don't like to think of it as cash burn. Now, call me crazy as CEO. Let's think of it as cash investment to change the future, okay? I know that's a bold statement, but right now it's about $100,000 to $200,000 a month. We can talk about this a little bit. We are discussing with capital partners a convertible debenture right now to help match the required funds for the very large federal government grant. And we're also a finalist for a very large provincial government grant through ERA. My anticipation, my hope, especially as construction season really gets going next spring, is that we are cash flow neutral by Q2 calendar, Q2, maybe Q3. So that would be the spring and the summer. That being said, we have had some excellent discussions with some potential equity partners, clean tech funds, that would allow us to accelerate the made in Canada production of our tech board. And if we do accelerate that, that would, of course, have some initial capital costs and people costs, because we would require a full manufacturing facility just for the tech board. So there's a couple different levers. Joel Douglas, our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, actually, Joel is on this call now. Joel has a very detailed model that allows us to very strategically pull different levers and monitor exactly where we are. I'm very proud of actually our finance team as well, who are working with Ernst & Young right now, our year-end results. We don't have to do that, but it's important for me that we act and report to all of our stakeholders as if we were a public company.
Okay. Do you still have ambitions to build out a larger facility, a larger plant? And if so, is that a year out, 2 years out? What's the plans for a 100,000 square foot facility?
So great question. So if we're sitting here today, we have tech panel manufacturing. We bring Generation 1 tech board in from China. We're about to, in this Calgary space, our tech center expand, but that expansion is for additional tech panels. So our current revenue generating business with some additional space, about 2,000 square feet. That's a bit of an internal argument between our head of manufacturing and Doug, our chief technology officer, for the 2 foot by 2 foot made in Canada production. But that'll be done here in our existing space and with the expansion. The plan still, though, is we need about 80 to 100,000 square feet for a full tech board manufacturing facility. We have modeled this out. We have been in discussions and budgeted out exactly what equipment we need. We have a master toolmaker from Denmark on our team. So Christian's been working with Journey Engineering, Doug and team, Adam and team. So that is still the plan. If we take it one step further, the plan for ZS2 is really then to also look, and we've done had some preliminary discussions with some civic authorities in Southern Ontario. Most important, or I guess the most advanced discussions were with the folks from Middlesex County near London, Ontario, about a tech panel plant in Eastern Canada and a tech panel plant in Texas. And we've had some discussions with an existing OSB SIP panel manufacturer in Alabama that we would actually transition their business to ZS2. So the goal is distributed manufacturing. So tech panel plants close to our clients that reduces shipping costs. Obviously people can come see us, but the tech board and made in Canada magnesium products are here in Southern Alberta within close proximity to the raw materials. This model is very similar to how Pella Windows grew very quickly. And I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with the CEO and former chairman of Pella Windows many years ago during my time at DIRT. And he mapped out exactly how he grew Pella so fast. And he said, Scott, windows break and they're expensive to ship. So they bought out or built new window factories and switched them over to Pella, which had the brand, the technology, and the R&D and the proprietary solutions.
Interesting. And what would the cost of expanded plant be, and what would the margins look like as well after bringing that on?
So right now, so this is going to be a bit of a long answer, but I'll try to break it up into different pieces, which is really how we manage our business, is breaking it up into manageable chunks. It's the only way you can manage such a growing company. So on the tech board, so generation 2 made in Canada tech board, those margins will be 40 to 50%, but more importantly, we will reduce the cost to our clients by 10% on the board, because we are eliminating the $10 US per board we currently pay in shipping costs from the port of Ningbo, which is Shanghai, to Vancouver, and then overland to Calgary. So the onshoring our manufacturing for a superior product will actually improve our margins and allow us to provide a price decrease. So that's on the tech board. In terms of tech panel plants, right now we shipped to Texas for a house, the first of 23, and we are cost competitive versus conventional stick build or frame construction on site. That's amazing to me. But the cost of shipping was 8% of that project. If we had a tech panel manufacturing plant in Texas, which only requires about 20 to 30,000 square feet, we could reduce those costs to where transportation will be 1%. So that's a reduction of 7, and we can take some of that margin and maybe pass along some of that margin or cost savings to our clients, which would allow us to capture greater market share. I will also say, and I've lived this before, and I saw it with DIRT, and as we built that company from 6 million in sales to over 300 million in sales, scalability, scalability, scalability. Joel has a wonderful waterfall to show our margin expansion in the business, but it breaks it down into different chunks. And the scalability and expansion and improvements that we can have on our factory floor, automation, are significant. But the big but, that requires 3 resources. The 3 critical resources to run any company: capital, time, and people. And those are the 3 things, obviously, that we're obviously worried about, but I feel pretty good about going forward. But that's something in terms of us judiciously managing our growth. We don't want to grow too fast. Well, I do, and I'm sure our shareholders do, but we do have to be cautious in managing that growth.
Mm-hmm. Now, when do you plan to phase out the Chinese MGO product? Is that a plan in the short term, or is that more of a longer term plan?
So we do get asked this question quite a bit. I'm not sure we ever phase it out. I believe the market is so big, and what we're doing, in terms of some of these large development, it might be years. And that's just me being honest. Mm-hmm. Now having a made in North America solution, and trust me, I plan on stamping a big maple leaf and a big stars and stripes on every single board or tile that comes out of our Southern Alberta factories. We will still need the strategic partnership with our Chinese supplier for the foreseeable future, just to meet demand.
And speaking of sales, we're talking about 189 million in the pipeline is what was on one of those spreadsheets there. How much do you think you'll get for How much will you convert into actual sales?
So right now, or historically, again, brutally honest, we probably convert, well, I know we convert less than 1%. That doesn't mean that the projects have been lost. It's just we're only 2 years old as a company. And if you think about that Trico project, which I showed some of the images of, that project has been on the books for Trico for 3 to 4 years. They went into the ground 2 years ago, and we secured it for ZS2 about 7 to 8 months ago. So that was actually probably a quick sales cycle, because when Trico came to meet us, we developed a relationship. They really said, whoa, yes, you guys are different. We're going with you. So we were able to kind of shrink the sales cycle a little bit. But some of the projects we're working on right now, some of these large development projects, which are in that sales pipeline number, they're quite large, and they'll be multi-years. The Habitat for Humanity project, as an example, it could take 3 to 4 years to build that out. So that's number one. Number two, the quality of the projects in our sales pipeline, and our business development team are doing a tremendous job. We are getting much better. Like, we've had so many tire kickers. We're getting much better about having technical conversations with developers, homeowners, multifamily, commercial builders, and showing them our proof projects. In construction, you really need to be, people always ask, well, what have you done that's like my project? Well, now we have the ability to go through, here's 35 ZS2 projects, whether it's a commercial build, whether it's assisted living, whether it's multifamily, whether it's single family. So the quality of the sales pipeline. So your question was, how much do we expect to convert? I expect to convert all of them. My team and Joel right now would hit me over the head with a hammer for saying that. So, but the conversion rate is improving.
Okay. And now a question that a lot of guys want to know is, when do you plan to publicly list?
So I can't make a commitment on that, because you never know what happens. Here is my commitment to all of our stakeholders. And this is an opinion that this actually may, for some stakeholders, may or may not, make them happy. I never speak about an exit or a liquidity event. I know that if you build a great company, those events or the ability for liquidity or further growth will naturally come, and will come quicker. I have sat in so many presentations around the world. I remember one in particular at the Canadian Embassy in London, when I was a speaker at a clean tech event for National Bank Financial, where multiple companies said, and here's our exit strategy. We don't have, and I don't have, an exit strategy at ZS2. I want to build a world-beating Canadian company. And I believe opportunities will then exist for us if we continue down that path. That being said, my background is taking companies public. It's probably the only thing that I've had success in, or might be good at, other than that, and building amazing teams and letting them run the business, both with Pure Technologies, Dirt. I was a founder, and we took public Decisive Dividend Corp, which is a different business model, but wonderful. I'm still a shareholder in that. Wonderful success. So there is obviously a lot of interest for us when we get size to do that. But there may be other private companies, some of whom are talking to us. The construction space is extremely large. In particular, if you think about the cement and concrete space, the Lafarges, the Saint-Gobains, the Holcim's, the Heidelbergs, it's an oligopoly. Those folks know who we are now. So we'll see where it goes. But our goal would be, if and when we go public, and I see that as a very viable and probably likely path, that won't be for liquidity or exit. That will be to obtain additional capital to grow faster and allow us to now speak and get free press to everybody in the world who's doing a construction project. Okay.
And speaking of funds and groups involved, can you speak to some of the groups involved in your company today that's you're proud of, that are part of ZS2?
Well, obviously, we shared a little bit about the management team in this presentation. Just quickly, those last two slides, just for interest's sake for everyone. But our board of directors. So obviously, Dave Richardson, the Richardson family of Winnipeg. Dave is a prolific clean tech startup investor, also a major philanthropist, lives in Vancouver part-time, and then also spends a lot of time, he and his wife, in France. Dave has been a tremendous supporter through his family office and is the second largest shareholder in ZS2. And just recently, with our convertible debenture, actually increased his position. There's a couple family offices. We have on our current convertible debenture secured an investment, a lead investor for $1 million. That's through a family office for a high net worth, very successful Calgary entrepreneur, but he actually would like to remain anonymous. But we appreciate the support. They've already been supportive on other initiatives for us. So amazing vote of confidence in terms of what we're doing. And then also I'd highlight on our board of directors, Matt Grieve, Magnum Ventures, also a very successful investor in many investors, but especially in the commercial property arena. Matt's father, Ross, is the former chairman and CEO and really built up PCL Construction. Very successful businessman, but Matt in his own right has had a tremendous success both with commercial property and clean tech investments. So
Wonderful.
actually, and you know what, I'd be remiss, I just want to highlight once again, we're very appreciative of the support from Progressive Planet Solutions. Steve Harper, the CEO there, believes wholeheartedly in everything we're doing and has been a tremendous support from day zero.
Wonderful. And I understand you are raising some capital right now. Maybe you can speak to how much you're raising, price, if it's a debenture, if it's shares or equity.
So I don't know if any of the listeners or those that are listening to the recording in the future are aware, but interest rates seem to be climbing a little bit and everybody seems to be talking about inflation. This might be groundbreaking news that I'm sharing with you all right now. So the markets have been tough. You know, we launched a brokered investment earlier this year, but we've hit some headwinds. Although I would say in the last month, and especially because we were at Greenbuild, there were some very large private equity clean tech focus groups that came to see us. That was planned. They reached out to us before the event. So without discussing the details there, very excited about what's happening there. But in the interim, we are actively seeking $2 to $3 million by way of convertible debenture. We have commitments or has been funded, significant amount has been funded. I think our first close was yesterday. Joel would have to confirm that. There will be multiple closes up till December 30th, I believe is the plan. And we've received commitments for about funding for $1.4, $1.5 million with some soft commitments for probably another $600,000 to $700,000. The use of those proceeds is specifically matching funds for, again, and I don't want to jinx it, I'm very superstitious at times, a very large federal government grant, which we hope to receive notification of in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of momentum. It also is to help us with our strategic expansion here for the tech panel manufacturing. So that debenture, the reason we pivoted a little bit away from the equity transaction was given the macroeconomic kind of situation, people looking for yield, some downside risk protection. So it's a 10% coupon. It would convert to equity upon the completion of a qualified equity round, and it would convert at the lower of $2, which is our last external money in, or a 10% discount to the future equity round. So hypothetically, just to walk people through real quick, if we do our next equity round next spring, next summer, it may happen sooner because there is some significant interest from some major players out of the US. At $3, then that would convert at 2, so a 33.3% discount.
Okay, awesome. Now we do have a couple questions here. Let's just go back here. What is the cost and time to build certain bigger size production plants? What kind of max revenue capacity would a typical plant size plant have?
So for tech panels, so our existing, great question, our existing manufacturing, what we do now, the cost is about $3 to $4 million. We used to estimate it about 2.5, but let's say it's gone up a little bit. And we need about 20 to 30,000 square feet. So remember I was talking about, we're already kind of talking a little bit about Southern Ontario, Texas. So not super capital intensive. And really the goal is what we have here in Calgary, that becomes the playbook. Also the equipment to put it in probably an existing building somewhere, we can get fairly quickly. So probably be operational in 3 to 6 months. So it's quite easy. And that has always been our goal. The tech center is our showpiece factory for the tech panels, also our home for R&D, marketing, tours, etc. But then we can take that playbook and replicate it elsewhere in North America. Our estimate for the tech board, so this is the Made in Canada full sheets, 8x4s, 9x4s, 10x4s, is $5 million. It's actually about $2.6 million in equipment, and we have put in place some contingencies for that plan. Then we would also require the 80 to 100,000 square foot building. We have been in discussions with 3 very qualified and interested parties who would help us. I'd love to build that building out of tech panels, obviously, as a showpiece, where they would fund the building and they would become our landlord. I don't necessarily want, I'm not a believer in us holding real estate. I'm not in the real estate business. ZS2 isn't a real estate company. We're a technology company.
Impressive. Now, as for the filed patents, another question from Kuljit. By when does ZS2 hope to have approvals for them? Any ballpark timelines?
Doug, are you still online?
No, he did leave, actually.
Yeah. He did leave. He's probably on site. Okay, so just thought that'd be a great question for Doug to answer. So our initial patents, so we filed patents in both Canada and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The first patents were filed about a year ago. We work closely with Owens Wiggs. They're a very reputable, large law firm out of Vancouver, BC, strictly focused on intellectual property. So they've been wonderful to work with. Actually, the chief partner we work with will be here in Calgary in a few weeks for a full review about what else we can file. And we've also now filed in all the patent cooperation treaty countries to give us protection elsewhere. Those are being reviewed by the US Patent Office right now. The Canadian Patent Office will defer to the US PTO. We haven't received any comments back. I would expect the patents to be granted perhaps within the next year. It's a long process. I'm okay, and we don't mind because we filed them, so the stake is in the ground, if there's delays in them actually being granted. Because of course, when they get granted, then they become public. Now that's okay because they're patents, but I like holding our cards a little close to the chest in terms of all of the material science. It's that leading edge.
Okay. Sean Maloney asks, is the debenture a secured debenture?
So it's not. It's an unsecured convertible debenture. Obviously, it ranks higher than the common shareholders by virtue of it being a debt instrument. Our capital structure or cap table here at ZS2 is very simple. Common shares, and then now this convertible debenture.
Okay. And what is the current valuation of the company?
Approximately enterprise value of about $40 million based on our last financing round.
Okay, perfect. I think that's it for really questions, unless other guys have it. I'll ask you maybe a couple more questions and I'll let you wrap it up unless some people jump in. What keeps you up at night right now? Is there anything that really kind of you worry about with the business? With the interest rate pressures today on building, have you seen any pressures when it comes to getting building approvals, et cetera, et cetera?
So lots of things keep me up at night, and as my team knows, I'm an early morning guy. So I usually hit them with emails starting at about 4:45, 5:15 in the morning. I don't ask them to respond right away. Right, Joel can vouch for me on that. Access to capital, there's no doubt the current macroeconomic situation, interest rates, in terms of for our expansion, the opportunity is so big for us. I got asked kind of a similar question the other day when we were in San Francisco. If we had $20 to $30 million in capital, like thinking larger, could we go faster? The answer is yes. It's an unequivocal yes. So that's number one. Access to capital does keep me up at night. Mm-hmm. Number two, people. So you asked it earlier. Having talented people, but there's two reasons it keeps me up at night. Our greatest strength at ZS2 is the team. It's this team. It's just amazing. Like it just energizes me working with all of my partners here. They are absolutely amazing. Our culture is so critical to what we're doing. We had the tour. I mentioned the developer coming in from British Columbia yesterday. I sent a note early this morning to the team just to thank them. We will walk onto the shop floor and Scott Wildman, who helps Adam Vanderheim run our manufacturing, I'll have a question, and then he'll just start talking about the quality control, and that our panels have a tolerance down to 1/8 of an inch. This is on a massive, 22-foot panel. And he's so proud. He's showing them the shop drawings or our spline vise. I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds here. Our project managers, Gary, Blaine, Russ, all of them standing up. Let me show you the drawings of what we're working on right now. So, just that customer centric, you get that vibe of our team. So keeping that culture will be a continuous effort for us, but it really excites me, but it also keeps me up at night as we're expanding, right? Because you have to be careful there. The third piece I would say would be just we need to constantly be leading edge. We need to continue to innovate. I have told the team that really I think our goal, and we say it right in our presentation, is we are a material science company. We need to accelerate our innovation, to accelerate our market leading presence. If we just sit back and think we're ever the greatest thing since sliced bread, we're dead. And think about the Canadian examples, right? And I don't mean to speak negatively about some wonderful Canadian success stories, but think about Nortel, where they were back when. Think about BlackBerry, right? Think about some of the software companies. I think people sometimes they stop investing in innovation and not realizing the world's changing, and that keeps me up at night as well.
What would you say your biggest moat is with your company today? I know there are other MGO competitors out there. Obviously, having a Baymag connection, making a made in North America product that you can put the Canadian maple leaf or the US flag on, it's got to be probably one of the biggest ones. But what else would there be that you would say that gives you the biggest moat or the best moat?
The best moat. I believe our team. I believe our access, it's funny, as I just said, keeps me up at night, access to capital, but we've obviously demonstrated that we have an access to capital with this team, so that helps. So getting to scale, a moat, obviously patents, but independent of patents, and I'll share with everybody who's listening to this, intellectual property is not just patents, it's not trademarks, it's industrial secrets and know-how and experience. Doug and his team have been at this now for 2 years. What they've done on the carbon capture side, which is only ZS2, this came strictly out of ZS2, is absolutely amazing. And we had a very large clean tech private equity group who are speaking to us, probably had about 8 conversations with them. They can't be a lead on investment. Let's just say their sole shareholder would be the federal government of Canada. Basically go through all of our science and pick apart different spots where we could also patent our technologies or license it. That got me very excited about all the other things that we could think about. Now, we need to remain focused, but that's really a tremendous credit to our R&D team and what they've accomplished and what they continue to accomplish. So I believe that's a moat. And then, to be honest, Tom, I would be underselling our ability to sell. Other people in this industry, whether it's construction overall or SIP panels overall, which could be OSB SIPs or prefab or the modular builders, I don't believe anybody can sell like our team. Leanne, our Chief Commercial Officer, and our entire sales team and our tech partner network, they are hitting the ground running. Nobody sells like us. And it's obviously an overused expression, but you can't have a bottom line without a top line. And that's what we're focused on.
Great answer. I agree with Leanne. She's definitely great at sales. I spoke to her when she was in Vancouver. Now, Kuljit asked you, do you foresee 200 to 300% year-over-year revenue growth at least for the next 4 to 5 years? Is that kind of something that you're forecasting, or would love to see at least?
So, the quick answer, I'd love to see that. I'm not gonna provide guidance other than we are forecasting about 300 to 400% revenue growth this year. That would be following I think about 340% revenue growth from the prior year that we've already accomplished. I do think there's also, and I saw it at Dirt, we had a bit of a tipping point where it was high growth, exponential growth once your brand is out there, once the market knows about you. So we had in year 4 or 5 at Dirt and absolutely blew the doors off, and we grew our revenue every single year. That being said, I'll use the Dirt example. From 2008, 2009, you had the world economic crisis. You had major banks in turmoil. We grew our revenue at Dirt, but we hit a blip, but we still grew. So that's possible too. There's macro factors that could happen, and we just need to make sure that we also build a strong balance sheet to weather the storm. This is a long-term, this is not, for ZS2, I truly believe for the next decade or two, we're building a world-class Canadian company.
Wonderful. Now, I'll give the people a chance to ask any last questions they may have. Maybe in the meantime, though, Scott, that you can just give a final few words as to what you're excited about moving forward as we come to a close in 2022 and we enter 2023.
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, and you sort of touched on it, what I think is really kind of neat around here, we are doing a great job in working collaboratively with some of our government partners, and there's a significant opportunity for non-dilutive capital to come into this company. We didn't even touch on the ability for us to monetize CO2 credits, and we hope to have a really major announcement on that here in the next month. There's so many interested parties out there who are very excited about what we're doing here in Western Canada in terms of reducing carbon footprint, developing new technologies, but a new technology that obviously construction needs. Here would be my closing analogy. And this is bold, but it's how I think. If you think about all of these companies that are looking for lithium extraction, the battery industry, the electrification of the auto industry, if we think about Tesla and we think about what Tesla's done, Tesla did not invent the electric car. They just figured out a much better way to build it. But even more so, they just market better. They have a better business model. 90% of Tesla owners buy it, not because it's cheaper, not because they're saving the environment. It's just a better, cooler car. So for us, I think about what Tesla's done in one of the world's oldest industries, the automotive industry, which is one of the world's biggest. Now let's take that to ZS2. And I truly do think this way. Construction is 100 times larger than the automotive industry. We at ZS2 we didn't invent magnesium cement. We're just finding a better use for it and a better way to do it, and selling.
Wonderful. Well, I will say ZS2 is one of the most innovative companies that's displacing the construction industry in Canada. I look under every rock. I literally go down many different pathways, and you definitely stand out, Scott. So one last question, actually, Russell just asked, is there a minimum or a maximum investment that someone could make? And how would they go about making that investment? Would they reach directly out to you, Scott, or would they reach out to Capital Fine Partners? How does that happen? How does that work?
So for us, so just reach out to us, and Joel Douglas will go from there. Minimum investment, we've put on the draft term sheet for the debentures that we're out in the market with, I guess over the last 4 weeks, $25,000. Obviously, though, it's sort of a soft floor. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason it's a soft floor, I'll just be honest too, is we love what we call investomers. Doug loves it when I use that term, and a gentleman by the name of Antonio Rios out of Vancouver kind of coined it for us many years ago. Our stakeholders, our shareholders, our investors become our greatest advocates for us to get more business and generate revenue, right? Mm-hmm. We're in construction. Everybody knows a project that's going on somewhere or something that's happening. We want to hear about that. Mm-hmm. In terms of maximum size, as I mentioned, our goal is to raise $2 to $3 million. We could go maybe a little more. That's really for that matches what we're hoping to hear back from on the large grant. And then the one caveat I'd say is obviously we're a private company. It's a private placement. It's non-brokered. Everyone should do their own due diligence, and they have to be accredited investors and meet the requirements of their local provincial jurisdiction.
Perfect. Well, that is it for me for questions, guys. I really appreciate your time. I think we've covered pretty much all the bases, and congratulations on a successful year. and really look forward to seeing what you guys announce next. So congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. I